one thing I was trained to do in my education, and I was open to this training, and I accepted it, was to read another person's argument as strongly as possible. You know, it's like in the simple version, if somebody misspells something, you don't act like their argument's no good. You know, and some people on the internet, of course, do that. They're like, well, you're obviously stupid if you can't even spell, so I won't listen to you. And if you notice, my philosophy on that is always, screw those people. Who needs them? I would like to spell incorrectly just to get rid of those people. But it goes a lot deeper than that. Especially if somebody's sort of heart is in the right place in some respect, or you have some incidental agreement. It makes a lot of sense to try to read a positive reading, and not just a positive interpretation, but to the point where, let's say somebody makes an argument based on A, B, and C, and you're like, you can't conclude this from A, B, and C, but I know you can conclude it from F, G, and H. You know that. So you replace it, the one you think is better in the argument. Then you look at the whole argument. Then you judge it. And so that's the way I've decoded Gary's philosophy. Now, I would say at this point is, what any useful philosophy has to advocate an action. And if you're interpreting a philosophy as useful, then it will imply some sorts of action. Including potential actions that should be taken in the future, potentially actions that are, inaction, like, well, we should sit and wait. But something that could be put as an action, right? And the action of worrying about what I would call the material suffering in the world, suffering that has material consequences. Is that we, that Gary would call the objective negative value of suffering, or something along those lines. My idea is that, the action is to look at the details. When are we causing material suffering? And I think we can look specifically at the pleasures we get, because that's all we're trying to get. If there's material suffering and nobody's even getting any pleasure out of it, then that's an easy one. We can have a project to look at that. But I'm interested in when we get the pleasure. I get a cheap pair of shoes and somebody slaved away for 50 cents to make it. Look at all of those situations. Try not on the first pass to figure out why they happen. Okay? And then come back and do that. For example, this wage inequity is because of the different valuations of currency and whatnot, and the cost of living differences. There's an argument that they should get something much more than the local market rate, so to speak, right? But of course, then you're pumping money from one economy into the other, and there's all sorts of reasons people don't want to do that. So you can debate what the cause of it is. Now, I think the main cause of misery is the cost of crime, and I don't mean the impact of the crime directly, but the cost for us to fight crime. If you include the fact that the only reason we need to have wars is for international crimes, And you can call them something, you can get all technical on me and not want to call them that, but basically, if you could spend all that money that you spend on war, we have a place here, which, I was thinking I'd love to have a philosophical get together here. But they've done some studies, and all these old septics, they leak into these beautiful lagoons. They look clean. I've never had a problem swimming down there, but they've proved that there's this problem. Well, that's too expensive for everybody to fix. Um, and you couldn't even imagine the government coming in and just doing it for people. But if we didn't spend money on war, we could do that. Without $1 trillion bailout, we could do that. We would have that much money. So, that's the main cost. The fact that what pleasures do we get out of war? Or is that one of those that we don't get any? Well, I think obviously we do get some, or some of us do, and this is one of the great problems I suggest might go at the top of a list of such problems.